All right. Welcome, fellow Conservation District employees, NRCS employees, Commission employees, other state and federal agencies that might be with us. Welcome, everyone. The next session that we have has a trio of coworkers of mine, actually, that will be presenting. Instead of introducing all three, I will introduce the first one, and each person will then give a quick introduction of the person up next. Try to streamline this a little bit. The first person up is Bennett LaFond. He is a new hire at Snohomish Conservation District. He's probably almost been with us 2 months, and during that time he's been telecommuting from Colorado. I think he's finally made it to the Pacific Northwest as of the last week or so, but his roots are here in the Pacific Northwest. His education originally took him to Vancouver, BC, and then to Vermont, and he's been in Washington, D.C., and New York. He's bilingual. He spent some time in Nicaragua, been all over the place. And we hope he'll put down some roots and stay with us here at Snohomish CD for a while. His most recent degree is a master's degree in plant and soil science, agroecology, and livelihoods from the University of Vermont. So with that, I will let Bennett take it away in the session of developing projects to benefit both agriculture and aquatic life. Go ahead, Bennett.
And Bennett, this is Nicole. I will ask if you have video. It would be great to be able to see you, but at minimum, can we check your audio really quick? Okay, Bennett, are you with us? You might still be on mute on your end. All right, try one more time, Bennett. Looks like you just muted yourself. If you can try unmuting. And let's see if we can get that audio working. Looks like you are on mute still. Why don't you try it one more time for me? It was a great introduction. I don't want to miss the words now. So let's try one more time. Bennett, looks like I've still got you on mute. Looks like it says it's muted on your end. Okay, well, Bennett, if you're having a little trouble, you should be able to see a little microphone icon, and if you click that, hopefully if it turns green for you, that means we'll be able to hear you. How about while he gets that going, Bobbi and Kari, can I do an audio check from both of you?
Yeah,
Kari, we'll start.
This is Kari. I will get the video going while we figure out what's going on with Bennett, because he just sent me a note on one of our internal things. So let me skip ahead.
Okay.
And we'll come back to the coolness that is what he'll be talking about here.
Okay, Bobbi, can I do an audio check with you too while Bennett gets himself going?
Yep, I'm right here.
Great. Okay, I can hear Kari and Bobbi. I can hear the two of you loud and clear. Bennett, I'm going to give you some time. If you just get it going, we'll let you come right into things. In the meantime, Kari, I'll let you take it away. And Ryan, do you want to do a quick intro for Kari? I know you had that planned out beautifully one at a time, but maybe we can skip to hers and we'll come back to Bennett when he's ready.
Kari has been with Snohomish CD for a few years as an outreach type person, if it has to do with websites and videos and sharing in creative, exciting ways what the Conservation District and our partners are doing. That is what Kari is up to.
Cool. Well, while Bennett is trying to figure that out, I will start with the video, which we debuted at our Ag Resilience launch plan in December of last year.
I'm a third-generation farmer, and my son is farming with me now, so it looks like we may be around for a while.
Oops. Ah, sorry, I muted and unmuted.
I love what I do. 4 years into it, and I hope it'll be a lot longer.
I grew up here on the farm. It didn't have a name in my youth. It was just a farm. One of the things that makes me proud to be a farmer
Sorry.
is that I actually produce something.
We're not just growing blueberries, but they're really good blueberries, and they're good for you. It makes all your hours worthwhile.
If we did lose the acreage, the farming, it'd be a loss that be hard to regain.
Development is a huge pressure. If you don't have land, you can't farm. The other incredible pressure is climate change.
We've got a double whammy. We've got climate change affecting weather patterns along with development that affects drainage, and it all ends up down here in the valley.
I have a couple minutes now because
As a farmer, it's all about preparing for the future. And if the future is unpredictable, it's hard to know where to go. The Ag Resilience Plan is really an effort to help all of us farmers weather the changes that are coming in the future. It's a way for farmers to raise their voices together and create change to benefit ag.
Yeah.
Wait. Makes us aware, gives us a overall picture of what we may experience down the road. And so I think I'll benefit everybody that's listening.
It takes the whole farming community, surviving together. It's not what it can do for me and for my farm. It's all of Snohomish County.
This is farmer-led. This is not a plan that's going to sit on a shelf somewhere. It's a plan that's going to lead to action to help real farmers with real concerns. And to people that wonder, what can I do? I would just say, get involved.
I mean, we can't just cave in. We have to keep trying.
I feel like there is only room for optimism and hope. One of the more common traits of farmers is a resilience and a creative approach to problem solving. We may not all agree on every single thing, but we are centered around resilience of agriculture into the future.
It's going to be a concerted effort, not only from the ag community, but the general public. Hey, we need this, we want this, we wanted to be part of the community.
If you just give up and walk away, you're giving up on your kids, and that's not in my nature. I don't give up easily.
hi guys, can everybody hear me?
Yes, hi Bennett. Kari Bennett's
Hi,
back
guys.
in. However you want to flip-flop this.
Yeah. Oh no, it doesn't mess us up too bad. Unfortunately, my computer won't give permissions to this app to do video and microphone. I don't know what happened there, but thankfully I can talk to you guys.
Okay, we've got you now. Take it away, Bennett. Thank you so much for enduring and getting enrolled with us.
Yeah, well, thank you for being patient. I'm Bennett LaFond. Ryan gave me an excellent intro there. I'm the Agriculture and Floodplains Resilience Project Manager at the Snohomish Conservation District. I'm responsible for the implementation of the Agriculture Resilience Plan. Like Ryan said, I've been with the district for just a couple months now, but I'm really loving working with the team. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Agriculture Resilience Plan, giving a general overview of the plan, and talking about some of the details about what went into it. Kari, we're going to come back to Kari, and she'll tell us about how we've been engaging farmers in the discussions around this plan. And Bobbi is going to talk to us about some of the priorities that were identified by these farmers' discussions. Finally, we'll kind of touch on next steps. Next slide. This just gives us a sense of where the conservation district is working. Can you go back one slide, Kari? Yeah, just want to share this quote with you guys. We have a goal statement at the beginning of the plan, but I feel like hearing it in their own voices, in farmers' own voices, really makes a huge difference. The Agricultural Resilience Plan is an effort to help all of us farmers weather the changes that are coming in the future. It's a way for farmers to raise their voices together and create change to benefit agriculture. Next slide. This slide just kind of gives you a general sense of where we're working if you're not familiar with it. We're in the Snohomish Conservation District. We're working in the Snohomish and Stillaguamish river basins and floodplains, primarily just a little north of Seattle. Next slide. The Agricultural Resilience Plan came out of discussions 4 or 5 years ago with the Sustainable Land Strategy, and this realization that while there were salmon restoration plans in place for the Stillaguamish and Snohomish River, and quite a few people representing fish habitat and restoration interests, there was really a lack of farmers around the table. There was only a couple farmers in these discussions, and farmers in the region did not have a clear plan backed up by science to base their decisions on, or even collective wisdom from the ag community in general to guide their decision-making processes. And this imbalance was also hindering salmon recovery and broader restoration efforts because large estuary products needed to take agricultural land out of production, and these projects in the floodplain were getting stuck in drawn-out political processes. So the hope was that by creating this ag resilience plan and fortifying that leg of the stool, it would hopefully lead to being more able to find common ground between farm fish and flood interests and develop multi-benefit solutions. You'll kind of notice that in that whole thing, I'm not talking a lot about flood. Initially, flood was not a huge focus of this project, but as time has gone on, it's become clear how important it is to both the farm and fish interests, and it's become more and more integrated in these multi-benefit solutions. Next slide. No, after that, the development of this plan also went along with identifying critical farmland for protection. We worked with the PCC Farmland Trust on this, and we looked to kind of look for things that were highly eligible for ag easements, and farmland that served an important purpose to the community and local farm economy, that had the potential to continue being farmed long-term, and farmland that was at a significant and immediate threat of development. Next slide. As I mentioned before, the need for scientific data to back up conclusions was critical. At multiple farmer community meetings, we identified a lack of information about upcoming challenges. Farmers kind of kept saying, we don't really know what's going to happen or how things are going to change. And so we spearheaded a series of impact assessments, looking at what some of the biggest environmental challenges facing the ag community were, and looking to collect concrete information on flooding, drought, and sea level rise. While this plan is not about climate change, it's about ag resilience into the future, we realized that in order to create priorities for resilience, we needed to fill these data gaps about how threats to agriculture were going to change into the future. Sorry, one second. Next slide. Yes, this slide. We started by doing a groundwater analysis, looking at changes in the water table on groundwater salinity, and Cardno helped us do that. Sorry, guys. And next slide. Kari?
Kari, are you still with us?
Yes, I am, and having a heck of a time getting there. It should be up, but hold on.
Still says groundwater analysis on our end.
See.
Looks like you stopped. There we go.
Should
Great.
coming
So,
up. Yeah.
I'm hoping to take a couple minutes to share an online tool that we developed with the Nature Conservancy. It's this tool that the Nature Conservancy developed several years ago, and we saw an opportunity to build on it with additional data and analysis that we're creating. I am going to see, maybe it'll allow me to share my screen, but I'm not really sure. Is there a way to change me to the presenter or something like that? I feel like with the permissions, we might have some troubles again.
We're not going to have any troubles. Just hang on one second, Bennett. I will turn you over and make you the presenter. Should be coming right at you. Just accept screen share and we'll let you know when it's up and running. Yep, looks like we can see a very busy screen.
Awesome.
See your coastal, you bet.
Quite busy. Which works a little different than on Zoom, but how's that?
Perfect.
Great. So yeah, we developed this tool to Nature Conservancy a few years ago, and in it we can select a region, and then we can pull up data on riverine and coastal flooding, sea level rise with groundwater levels, and saltwater intrusion. And this was something that we took this Nature Conservancy database that they already had and kind of built our own data into it. It makes it this really visual, active way that farmers and other people can look at some of these climate change predictions and analysis that we conducted. I'm going to start by just taking a quick look at the groundwater levels. And what Cardno ended up doing here was that they created delay maps. These delay maps, basically, one of the main determinants of how long the growing season is for farmers in the Snohomish Valley is the amount of time that it takes for the groundwaters to recede enough that they can get their tractors and heavy machinery out in the field without destroying their soils. And basically, it's saying if we suspect the sea level to rise 8 inches in the next 30 years, it will cause X weeks of delay in this area. You can see right now we're looking at the lower Snohomish, and by 2050, we're already seeing some sea level rise here as we push it up into 2100, all the way up from marshland, through marshland and up into French Creek, is experiencing a 5-week delay there in how long they're going to be able to, or how long it's going to take them to be able to get out into the field. Now, if we go back up to the Stillaguamish here, you notice that it doesn't affect nearly as far up into the river basin because it's a much steeper river, and so it's not as serious of an issue for them. However, because they're right there on the farming heavily in coastal areas, saltwater intrusion is a major issue. If you look here, this red line that we're seeing, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, is threshold salinity in millisiemens per centimeter. That 3 millisiemens per centimeter is where plants start to struggle to grow. And you can see right now, we're looking at 2018, there's already quite a bit of farmland that is theoretically experiencing salinity. We went out and talked to some farmers in the field, and what we kind of heard back from them was, yes, this is affecting us, but it's not entire fields. It's happening in patches where things are a little lower, or in certain areas maybe that are a little more coastal. However, as we push further and further up into 2100, you can really see that red line going further and further up the river. And this area right by the coast here is prime agricultural land. It's really critical in being pretty heavily farmed. Finally, we have this tool, which is kind of my personal favorite, that looks at riverine and coastal flooding. I'm going to scroll back down to the Snohomish here. And we partnered with the WSU Climate Impacts Group, who hired Fathom to do hydraulic modeling of the area. And what we have here is that we have our current data set, a prediction for the 2050s and the 2080s, and these different levels of flood. 100-year flood being an event that happens theoretically only once every 100 years. There's a 1% chance, and a 2-year flood being a flood that happens every other year. And in the Snohomish, we have dikes that are at threat of overtopping, and in a higher flood event, when the water goes over, that's when they need to start running their pumps to get water out of these diking districts, and that's really expensive and can be quite challenging for agriculture in the region. You can see in a 10-year flood event, you're starting to get some of that dike overtopping by the 2050s that is significantly less currently, and up into the 2080s, you're looking at 10 to 12 feet of water there, which is pretty significant. So we kind of took these data sets, both in this form and in some of our plan documents, and shared these with farmers and got a chance to sort of talk them through about how they react to it and how they wanted to approach it. I really encourage you guys to explore this tool. It's pretty easy to find at this URL that's in our presentation there. It's pretty fascinating seeing some of the effects that happen in the region. And I'd like to pass this back to Kari, who is our communications and outreach specialist over at the district, and she's really kind of spearheaded the engagement with farmers and how we approach people in the agriculture resilience plan. She's been at the district about 3 years and is really great at what she does.
All right, let's have you unmute yourself.
All right.
There you go. Sounds great.
Get back to the right screen again. So you should be seeing the Marshland flood CD.
Correct.
Okay, great. So I was going to cover the outreach portion of this, and really Cindy Dittbrenner, I think, was our ultimate lead for this program and this project, and she recently left the district to move to Boston, if you didn't know that. In that video that we showed, the cute, adorable child at the end is her son, Peter. So that was a really heartfelt project for her, I think, along the way. So outreach-wise, though, I joined the district in 2017. They'd already been working on this, the Ag Resilience Plan, and I came in after they had set the steering committee and were working on photo voice. So I'll cover some of this stuff for you. So the steering committee was a group of hand-selected people. They were chosen because of the different crops that they had across the county. They also were the type of people that were well respected within the farm community, who would be able to communicate well, hear our message here and hear from each other, and then be able to push that out to the other farmers in the area. And of course, you grab busy people because they're the ones who really care about stuff. So it didn't really matter if they didn't have time. They joined in because this was very important for them as farmers. Knowing the changes on the land, as you had already saw that quote from Libby Reed, she ended up being on our board. So a little tip, if you're looking for board members, engage them on some committee that really plays into their heartstrings and what they are doing in their daily lives. So the Photo Voice program, this started at the University of Michigan back in 1992, and the idea behind it is that it's built on the foundation that images and words together can effectively express communities and individuals' needs, problems, and desires. So with the Nature Conservancy, again, we were able to solicit 7 farmers to work with us. They went through 4 workshops together. They were able to talk about their farm. They were taught how to use a camera, to write about the different things that were affecting them, and then answer these 2 questions. Why is agriculture important to our community? And then what are the major challenges facing agriculture? So from that, a series of photographs, each farmer came up with 3 images. These are their images, their words. And we took this, they had their own artist reception in August of 2017 at a distillery in Snohomish. And really, I think this was a really nice entry point for the outreach because it was very reachable, very easy to walk up to an art show and talk to people about what's going on. And from this event, then it was my job to move it around our area. So I just want to show you some more of these images. They're just really great. We took it to the county building. We took it to about every snow owl library in our region. We took it to Focus on Farming. We took it to the fair. And again, very approachable display. So they were really our first outreach to their community and to the public itself. Bennett had mentioned the farming community meetings, and essentially with these, we were really in that map he showed, you know, Snohomish Basin, Stillaguamish Basin. We went to the Daiking districts, flooding districts, communities around certain neighborhoods, and then with staff, SCD staff there, and then also our consultant, we were able to present the science to them and then get their feedback right away about what they thought about what they were hearing. Is this accurate? Does it sound right? Is it, how has it changed? Is it raining until April and so then it's flooded and I can't plant my crop? So we were able to hear from them, and out of that we came up with priorities. So at this event that I already mentioned in December of 2019, Cindy Dibrenner was able to roll out the plan and have the document there. Of course, the photo voice display was on hand, but she was able to thank her steering committee. And for me, it was really cool to see all these farmers come to the table, literally, and then stand up and take a round of applause from the room, because Snohomish County agriculture, like Libby had said, and in the video, Dan and Spencer, it's getting crowded out. We have so many people wanting to move to this area, and that's supposed to grow. So we were able to thank them and acknowledge them for their work in this resilience plan. And it really is their plan. So if you want to find a copy of the actual plan, it is on our website. Lots of information there, and we'd be happy to go over any of the projects we did and how we got this done. With this, I would like to pass it off to Bobbi. Bobbi Lindemulder has been with the district for 23 years. Yay. We just celebrated that last week. Bobbi is our agriculture director, so she oversees the farm planners on staff. She's done about every role you can think of. But what I like about Bobbi is that she is a farmer herself. She raises grass-fed beef, and I see how she treats her cows. So I would want to have one of those from her. She understands also because she lives in a floodplain. So you have just the day-to-day knowledge of being a farmer and then the conservation experience beyond that. So she's going to walk through what the priority needs are. And thanks so much, Bobbi.
Thanks, Kari. We'll see if my camera will work here. Looks like it's on, but black. I'm kind of in a black hole out here in the Snoqualmie Valley, so oftentimes I can get video, but not video and audio at the same time. So I apologize for that. But so when the important thing about this ag resilience plan was really coming up with something from the farmers, for the farmers, to solve problems and solutions to take to the table. And so with this plan and all the meetings that we did and all the discussion that we had, we came up with 6 priorities from the ag community that we lined out in the plan as priority needs for implementation. And understanding that, you know, funding also is a part of that, but the priority needs were really important to get into a document. And so this is just the list of those 6, and I'll go through each of them. And then along with them, we created fact sheets on each priority to be able to have at meetings or for distribution at community groups and that kind of thing, so people could get a better understanding of what those priority needs actually meant. So with that, we'll start with drainage, or I think farm infrastructure or conservation is the first one. Snohomish County kind of sits right in the middle of King County, which has a very robust ag preservation program, and Skagit County that has a good farmland preservation program. And there's a really big interest and need for farmland conservation. And in this plan, we really actually identified that we want to have a 15,000 acre of farmland preserved over a 10-year period. And with an overall goal actually of 44,000 acres for farmland conservation and ag land production. Our issue is, along with everybody else, that the funding sources don't even come close to providing for purchasing those development rights or putting on the easements. But some of them that we have thought about, and some of the area counties around us actually use. We do have some floodplains by design funding for conservation easements for ag land. We've been thinking about what does it look like to put up a bond for collection of funds for conservation easements on ag land for farmland preservation. We have the NRCS ASEP, the Ag Conservation Easement Program. We also in Snohomish County have some conservation futures that we are able to partner up with NRCS oftentimes on some funds. And then Snohomish County also has a transfer development right program that they've been trying to get farmers enrolled into, but oftentimes our issue is that the payments are too low to really incentivize the farmers to participate in that. But really that's the big issue is the loss and rate of ag land that we're seeing based on development and subdivisions is really the overall impact to really try to separate that out and save that land. We have a lot of farmers that rotate a lot of ground. So we have a lot of commodity guys and crop guys where they're rotating corn ground and everything else out, that every acre that is lost to development that is not available for a rotation schedule for commercial farmland is a big hit. And so we really want to try to preserve as much as possible. So that's really one of the big pushes for this too, is preservation. The next one that was identified is drainage and infrastructure. As you can understand, living in a floodplain, there is a lot of drainage and infrastructure and maintenance, not only in diking, but the drainage infrastructure itself. There are drainage districts developed in many areas of the county, but they were put together long ago where there's maybe not a lot of landowners who are really supporting the cost of the pump maintenance and the drainage maintenance and the infrastructure, that they're really not able to collect enough money to maintain it at the level. And then combine that with the impacts that we're seeing with all the drainage coming down from the development above in the uplands, tied to the climate impacts that we're seeing with the type of rain, when we're getting it, the flashier floods that are happening. It's been really difficult for all of these drainage districts to take on all of that extra water that when they were developed, they were never developed to take on the amount of water that they're having to manage now. There's also culverts, tide gates, and ditch cleaning maintenance items. You know, we put in a lot of drain tiles back in the 70s within NRCS that are just ripe to fail, that all need to be looked at and taken care of as well. And then there's the permitting issues that the farmers run into that can be a really daunting process for them to take that on. And one of the things that they had talked about is really, in order to deal with this drainage and infrastructure and maintenance, is we need permitting help and regulatory help for us to be able to get this done in a timely manner, but also be cost effective for that. So then the next one would be the compensation. I touched on that, the compensation for upland runoff. There is a real strong feeling from the ag community that if they're managing the water in the bottom, they should be compensated from the water coming down onto them from all the development. And that is discussions that we're starting to have, but it's a touchy subject because you're asking the counties to implement policies and codes and funding charges to landowners in order to pay for something that they don't understand the connection to yet. So there's a lot of education on that as well. There are one maybe compensation agreement where there is a drainage district or flood control district that does actually get funding from the county to manage this, and other districts in the county are looking to see it, though, if those are an opportunity. But we also want to look at opportunities for decreasing the runoff before it gets there, in terms of low impact development or green stormwater, green stormwater structure improvements, retrofits, stormwater ponds that aren't working, rain gardens, all of those kinds of things. Is there opportunity for changing development code at the county level, or just even expanding the LID requirements for the developers while they're doing the development as it is. But the bottom line is what we're hearing from the ag community is the upland development has caused more runoff into the floodplains, and what that's resulting in combination with climate changes that we're seeing or impacts is a lot more flashier, more unpredictable water coming down through their systems and their inability to keep up with it. And if what we're seeing in our mapping scenarios and our modeling scenarios is that's not going to be easier into the future for these guys. And so we want to make sure it's in the plan. And then the next thing is flood protection. This covers a couple different items, and one primarily, not all of Snohomish County flooding in the ag lands is diked or managed, but there is a pretty significant dike infrastructure system, and that does need to be maintained. And it's not cheap. A lot of it was done in partnership with NRCS years ago and the Army Corps. The flooding is expected to get worse from what we're seeing, and we're just trying to also think of different things like the others. King County has an awesome flood warning system, and Snohomish County farmers are asking, what are some of the things that we can do? We could use some more time ahead of when the flood is coming and some more warning systems put in place. Can we take a look at our flood gauges? These flood gauges, they feel they were put in quite a long time ago, and they don't know when they're calibrated, or if with the movement of the rivers, if it's really in the best place anymore to where it's really adequately giving them good flood gauge data in order to address how deep it's going to get in their fields. And so that's something they want to talk to USGS about as well. They're concerned also, this came up again with, this is pretty consistent in any floodplain, I think on the west side, is they're seeing overall more floods, bigger floods, faster floods, flashier, unpredictable, and they're trying to figure out how to address that. And then what kind of projects to put in place in order to help with those protections. The large scale projects in floodplain, we're looking at storage capacity to store water to maybe try to take off that, at least the hump of the flood as it comes down, to store it and hold it a little longer. Levee maintenance, we're looking at flood fencing opportunities on the larger rivers, water break plantings to lessen the sediment and debris. The areas that don't have the diking and infrastructure, they get, in some of these floods, large depositions of silt and gravels and wood and debris and scouring, and they want to take a look at what are some of these things we can do with flood fencing and some of those things to help slow that down before it hits their ag fields. And then on some of the upper watersheds, they're more looking for bank stabilization to preserve farmland, because they're losing a lot of acres every year. This year was a pretty tough year on the west side in terms of flooding, and some of these guys lost 4 acres or more in just one of the floods. And so that continues annually if we keep getting floods worse, and they're really concerned about what that's going to look like. And so they're really wanting to know what kind of projects can we put together to help alleviate some of that. And then the 5th one was access to irrigation. We're seeing a lot of farms that never had to irrigate, or they had to irrigate very little, that are finding themselves having to irrigate more and more often, or longer into the season, or earlier in the season. And the summers, we're seeing some drier summers. And we also have a real issue with access to water rights. We have a lot of people moving out that are new to farming, that are either leasing ground or purchasing ground, not realizing that they are not going to be able to irrigate because there is not a water right associated with that. And so we're trying to figure out, water storage options for farms. And also we had some great success in King County, actually, where they developed a watershed improvement district, and they actually had worked with farmers with irrigation or with water rights within that area, and they were actually able to pool them, working with Department of Ecology, create, for a better word or not, a water bank. And those farmers who had water rights that weren't needing all of the water for that year banked them, and those farmers who didn't have any water that could access that water for them to use. And so it was a great little opportunity for those farmers who didn't have a water right to provide them access. And so we want to look at some of those opportunities up in the Snohomish in some of our watersheds to see if that's a solution that we can really try to take a look at too. But irrigation and access to water is really going to be an issue, I think, for a lot of us into the future. And then the final one was assistance, drought resilience practices. These aren't new practices, but they're certainly ones that we're taking a good hard look at in terms of cover crops and building up organic matter and soil health and developing more water holding capacity. There's a lot of interest in soil amendments in terms of compost and biochar, but what we are finding, not surprising, is it's very expensive, and for the amounts that these larger scale farms need for their ground, it's just not economically feasible for many of them. So we're trying to figure out, how can we offset that with some cover cropping programs that we're doing, and we're starting to get more farmers interested in cover cropping. And then what are some new crop alternatives? We've worked with WSU on some mapping for new varieties that we couldn't grow here before, but with the changing, maybe hotter, drier summers, that we might be able to have an opportunity for new crops or a later growing crop that we couldn't get before. And so we're looking at those as well as providing an alternative other than, just saying, well, you're not going to be able to grow what you have been used to, but are you willing to look at it, maybe a higher niche crop that might be able to bring you more money if you have less, the ability to farm it on fewer acres. So there's a lot of different things to look at in there. And then the last thing would be this additional groundwater analysis. The salinity issue is really of a concern on what it really is going to look like. And like Bennett said, is we have some initial data showing that right now it's spotty, and it's at the point where they're starting to see some impacts to some of the crops. But as we go into the years into the future, it's really looking like it could become a bigger problem and a much bigger problem. But we really can't tell what the level of that could be until we do some more analysis. And so we're looking at some additional groundwater analysis and some more modeling for that to try to really capture a little more of what's happening on that level too. So that'll be interesting. So as we went through this list, the way that we broke it out in the plan was, I'm just going to give you two examples. This is the lower Skykomish, we have the Snohomish, and then the lower Stille. And this is just an example of the farmers breaking it out. So we have this list of 7 things, and then we broke it out into tiers, like tier 1, tier 2, and like our most important need and our secondary need. But really, like, this was one of those watersheds that was in the upper watershed, the Skykomish River. It runs really fast. It's much more narrow. It doesn't have as big a breadth of floodplain as some of the other river systems around us. But their number one need in here was protect farmland from riverbank erosion. These are the guys that are losing 4 or 5 acres at a shot during a flood because of just the access to the river, to the adjacent ag lands, and it's washing away. There are some fish projects that we have been putting in there, but as you know, these can be really, really expensive. And they take a long time to get to. But this was their number one priority out of everything that we talked to them about. They all said, save our banks. And so that was something that came out of the lower Skykomish. But then if you go up to the Stillaguamish, they had that whole list of needs, almost met that 1 through 7 that I just went through. These tier 1 needs are not in order of how they prioritize them, but they have a much broader list of needs because it's a bigger basin. these guys are not diked, but it's really talked a lot about irrigation. These are the guys that are dealing with the potential salinity issues. They are dealing with a lot of the flashier floods that bring in the debris and the scouring and the depositions. They want to know more about the flood gauges and the emergency warning systems, and drainage is really big for these guys as well. But they also have big infrastructure needs when it talks about drainage in terms of floodgates and tide gates and all of those that they just cannot afford to do on themselves with themselves. And then protecting existing ag land, we put it as a tier 2. It was also very important to them, but they also totally understand the fact that that's going to take a lot of money to protect a lot of existing farmland. And as money comes along, we're certainly going to be applying that to whatever ag lands that we can moving forward. But the infrastructure piece is really important to them as well. And then I think, next slide, please, thanks. The one thing out of the importance of the farmers was, I don't think you guys would probably say that, wow, these are earth-shattering and really surprising things that the farmers came up with. We expected this is what they would come up with, and this whole process processed and verified that we were all tracking with the ag community. But what it did is now it put it into a document, and it put it into a vetted document, the needs of the ag community. It validated the needs of the ag community, and now we have a document comparable to the salmon plan for agriculture to be able to take to these tables, as Bennett's going to talk about the project packages and next steps, and the importance that if it's not in a document these days, it's going to have a hard time getting funded. And so that was really the importance of this, and the farmers understood that, and it provided the farmers a place at the table and a voice in all of these discussions, and it really raised their need and their importance of their involvement in this whole process. So that's all I have to say about that. I'll have Bennett finish it out with the integration team top project packages.
Yeah, thanks, Bobbi. Coming out of this plan with these clearly identified priorities, we've established the integration teams, or tasked the integration teams in the Stillaguamish and Snohomish rivers with moving forward project packages that align with with agriculture priority plan priorities. And right now, kind of their top priority have been these floodplains by design grants in the Snohomish and Stillaguamish. Moving forward, some big ag drainage projects, tackling BMPs, and a number of specific projects and project designs. Among these, we're looking at reconnecting and restoring a old ditch essentially into a wetland, and this project will hopefully both increase ag drainage and create habitat for fish and other species. And we're also right now exploring ways to store irrigation water on farms during high flow periods so that they can pull from that during the low flow periods in summer and help deal with some of those irrigation issues that farmers have been having that Bobbi was touching on. Next slide. It's really important to stress that to carry out this type of work, these really big multilateral projects, and to fund this type of work, it requires the cooperation and partnership between many organizations. And you can see some of the many partners we've had here, and would be happy to talk more about some of those collaborations that we've had. And the last slide here, I just want to leave you this final quote that I think kind of sums up what we're hoping will come out of this. This is not a plan that's going to sit on a shelf somewhere. It's a plan that's going to lead to action, help real farmers with real concerns. Yeah, I really invite you guys to explore our website, snohomishcd.org, and on the Ag Resilience page, you can find a number of resources, some of the studies that I was showing you, the full plan document, as well as specific within that plan document or separated out from it, plans for each reach and area of the Snohomish and Stillaguamish River. And just kind of want to remind you guys that my role here is to lead this plan to implementation and to bring it to reality. And I'm really excited about that and that potential, and bringing these ARP priorities into the field. You can get in touch with me at LaFond, BLAFOND, at SnohomishCT.org, or 425-377-7005. Hope if you have ideas, that you reach out and we can talk about them. And I want to leave a couple minutes here for questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
And go ahead.
Yeah, no, just thank you, and thanks for sticking with me through some technical difficulties. That's all.
Okay, thank you to all three of our speakers. Just a reminder for folks to type your questions into the question box, or you can raise your hand. I'll unmute you and you can ask it direct. So we've got a couple questions that have already come in. One of them said, this is clearly a huge and complex project. How much did this project cost? How was this funded?
That was funded largely by Floodplains by Design grants, as well as some ESRP and NOAA grants. It's kind of been a patchwork process of identifying projects within that align with these priorities that we're talking about, and building some additional planning into each of those smaller funding packages, as well as kind of the large Floodplains by Design packages that have really helped push it forward and finalize it. I don't have an overall number off the top of my head. Somebody that's been with the district might know what that total would be. I think it'd be hard to quantify because it's been.
Bobbi, I know they were several $100,000 worth of grants, and it was piecemealing it together, and it was kind of fits and starts to get to the next grant, and it was a lot of sharing of the funds, because there was so many committee work done, and this wasn't all SCD staff time, of course. This was a lot of partnership where it came to the district, but we contracted out, or we had other teams in the queue. But moving forward, this is what this also does too, that's very important, is our funding packages moving forward. What we're really looking for and applying for now is floodplain by design packages, because what we have now is a farm fish flood scenario and agreements on projects that can work together for the resiliency of ag, and also benefit fish, and hopefully lessen the impact of flooding. And so we're looking at the floodplain by design fundings moving forward. We have a couple in the queue that we're applying for now in order to hopefully get that done. But this will be a long-term solution, continuing applying for grants.
Okay, feel free to put any other questions in the question box. There was a comment in here from Shannon, and she said that Cindy, when Cindy was there, took the time to explain the process of getting this plan going, and the Snohomish Conservation District team is presenting to the Whidbey farmers next month, and commented that you all are so welcoming with sharing this plan, and great job, you guys are awesome. So some big kudos for what you have done and your ability to work with others and share, which sounds pretty nice.
Oh, thank you. That's all I can say to that. Just, yeah, that means a lot. And Cindy and I think everybody at the district put in a ton of work to making this come together. I can't take credit for that. It's 5 years at least of work leading up to that, and having that set of priorities and that package to work with.
Okay, another comment here. It seems like there is an expectation that others will pay for farmers to implement actions that they cannot afford. How are the farmers demonstrating what they contribute to justify this subsidy?
In some cases, there is a cost share model. Actually, a lot of smaller projects happen using cost share, where farmers are pitching, I think, 50% towards each of these projects, and so it takes quite a bit of commitment. I think it's important to keep in mind that a lot of and maybe I misunderstood the question, but that a lot of these projects are essentially public goods. They're projects where one farmer is implementing something on maybe a piece of land that they're not using so much, or that needs improvement, that is benefiting all of the farmers around them. And so for them to get that, they're essentially giving up part of their land a lot of times, or a part of their work in maintaining it to benefit those around them. And the district is kind of stepping in to help make that process a little bit easier.
And I would add also, this is Bobbi, that a lot of these projects are packaged as 3 legs to the stool. So when a farmer receives some benefit, or a valley receives some benefit, there's typically a benefit to a habitat or fish project and flood control or something like that. There is also the benefit, the farmers, especially down in here in these drainage districts, where the infrastructure just can't keep up with the additional development. They don't feel like they should be expected to take on the full cost of some of those structures, because they're taking on so much water that they have a zero control over the development above them. But a lot of these are tied together, but there is some projects in here that are going to be just straight fish habitat benefit, and some in here will be ag benefit product. But a lot of these, we look for those win-win-win, so everybody can move down the road together.
Thanks, Bobbi. Follow-up question from the same asker. Also wondering, will they surrender things like development rights for the benefits they receive, or is there any negative towards what they receive here?
Not usually. Definitely not as far as development rights, unless they are getting paid for them. And that's one of the big portions of the plan, and something we're working on kind of consistently, especially with PCC Farmland Trust, is in some of those critical areas buying those development rights and making sure they get paid for them. There's quite a bit we're doing with them there. But no, I think that those we are hopefully looking for solutions that are not taking any ag land out of production, or not creating any large losses for those benefits. I mean, a lot of the stuff we're doing is kind of these drainage infrastructure projects, where the drainage infrastructure needs to happen anyway. We can help pay for it, and part of us coming to help pay for it also means that we're building some extra flood and fish benefits into those projects.
Okay, if there are any final questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box or raise your hand and I can unmute you. We'll take any final questions, and maybe, well, folks, if they've got a final question here in the last minute, if you guys have any final things that you would like to wrap up, or any other comments you'd like to add, now's the time. As well as, it looks like, I will mention up on the screen is the Snohomish CD website with the link to that ag resilience information, and I highly recommend folks go and check it out. And as well as, you can find contacts for all the speakers today from their website for any follow-up. I know you guys have all said you're pretty open to being contacted and having that conversation with folks, so thank you.
One quick final one, Nicole, this is Bobbi, is going back to that last question. One of the reasons why we headed down the direction of the ag resilience plan was because we were seeing losses of ag land for fish habitat projects, where the farming community had very little input or discovery on. And what this does was, this plugs the ag community right in direct discussions at the table with the fish projects that are coming on, the ag needs out there. So if this has done anything for the ag community, it's provided them a real voice and a seat at the table to have discussions about potential losses and potential gains on all sides.